Hey folks, in this video you're going to learn how to adjust the note range of any individual instrument within Sunday Keys for Ableton. Some different types of instruments might not make sense all the way across the keyboard. For example, some lead parts you might only want in the right hand, some synth bass parts you might only want in the left hand. So in today's video we're going to talk about how you can move the layers around on the keyboard so that layers only exist where you want them to. Now, when you make these changes, these aren't going to be baked into a specific clip because duplicates of these clips, these presets, this worship piano and this worship piano, for example, they both reference the same actual instrument, which lives here within the Pianos 1 instrument rack. It's this instrument right here. So if you make changes to the note range for the worship piano here in the instrument rack, then it's going to affect both this worship piano preset clip and this worship piano preset clip and this worship piano preset clip, etc., etc. So if you want to make changes to a preset but only have it take effect on one specific instance, then the best thing to do is to check out the video later here on the video resource page about adding sounds and presets to the template, and I'll show you how to actually duplicate an entire instrument rack so that you can make changes to a copy of the worship piano instead of the original worship piano, which may be helpful in some scenarios. Most of the time, you're probably going to want these layered changes to be made all the way across for every instance of an instrument, but if there's ever an example where you don't want that, then we'll show you how to do that. Just check out the adding sounds and presets to the template video here on the video resource page just a little bit further down. So for the purposes of this example, let's work with the mini lead patch. This is a really nice mono synth, and it works really well in the right hand for lead parts. And you can layer it with pianos and it's a nice cool sort of lead sound. But the problem comes in when you play stuff in your left hand. Because it's a mono synth, then you're going to hear the piano play all those notes, but anytime you play a new note, then the mono synth is going to jump to that new note and leave the old one. Which isn't necessarily what you want. You may want it at times, but oftentimes with a mono synth, you only want it over on the right hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the layer range of the mini lead so that it only goes so far down the keyboard. It's really easy to do this. When you have a clip playing, a preset selected, here in the chain selector, it's automatically going to be highlighted. So you want to make sure that you're on the right track, so synths 1. And we have the mini lead that we're going to affect. So it's right here. So all you need to do to adjust the layer range is click this key button right here. And when you do, you'll see a keyboard all the way from C-2 up to C8 and even a little bit higher than that. So now that we've got this window open, all you do is click and drag on the bottom or the top end of the range for the specific instrument you're trying to affect. So we want the mini lead, which is right here. So I'm just going to click on the bottom left, and you can see that little bracket lets me know I'm on the side. And I'm just going to click and drag this up. Let's do about C3. So now you can see here, these red notes, as I play lower on the keyboard, I'm not hearing that synth. And then as soon as I hit middle C, I'm able to hear it. So now I can play this piano. So this is a useful thing to be able to do, absolutely, because it can make room for you to play lead parts in your right hand, play synth bass stuff in your left hand, and then also have some layers that are across the whole range of the keyboard. So you might consider making a little note here in the name of the patch something that'll let you know that it's been modified. If you wanted to make a more detailed note, you could right-click on the clip and add some info text for it. Edit info text. And you could type in right hand only. Just note that that's going to take effect on copies of the MIDI lead as well on this track. Now, one thing to note, it's not going to affect the other track. It's not going to affect the MIDI lead on Synths 2. It's just going to affect all the clips that reference the MIDI lead on the Synths 1 track. You could also make a note here on the instrument itself, because it is going to affect all copies of the MIDI lead. It just depends on what's going to help you stay the most organized. It's not necessary to do it all functionally. It's just helpful to be able to go back and reference the changes that you've made. After you're done adjusting your cue layers, you can hide this again by clicking on Hide, which I like to do because then you can see your performance rack for the individual instrument really easily when you select a clip. So let's do one more. Let's do some synth bass. I'm going to hit all off here. And you can see that in Sunday Keys for Ableton, the synth bass tracks already have layer changes made to them. So this is the warm bass right here. And you can see that right now it goes up to about C2, right there. Then it cuts off. Now, if you wanted to increase the range of the synth bass, if you wanted it to go up to C3, you would just click and drag. Just depends on maybe the song that you're playing, the number of notes on your keyboard, and adjustments like that. And you can also see we've got a couple other layers here. These modular bells only go down to C3. All of the bass cuts off at C2. So you can make the changes that make the most sense for you and the way that you want to perform. But it's really nice to be able to kind of sit these things around on the keyboard, spread things out, and then have a lot of separation in your playing so that you're able to grab more than one sound, and everything has a specific range. One other thing I like to do at times is to stick things in the mid-range, sort of to fill some of that warm space. I like to do that with pads oftentimes, especially if I'm layering two pads. I might leave one pad across the entire range of the keyboard and then add a second pad in, maybe in the pads 2 track, that only exists in the mid-range. So maybe from about C2 all the way up to maybe C4 or E4, depending on the song. Pick a note that makes sense. You don't want to have a chord inversion you're playing. For instance, like here, I'll take these off so you can hear what I'm talking about. We'll play this brass pad. You wouldn't want, if you're playing in D, play a G second inversion, and then you go to play an A second inversion. You wouldn't want this C sharp to not be in. So if you were going to change the key range of this brass pad, set the top range here. You wouldn't want to set your range, take that down an octave. You wouldn't necessarily want your range to be set at C4, because then when you played this G, you'd have this nice B on top, and then you'd go up to play your A second inversion, and that C sharp wasn't coming through. So if you're playing in the key of D here, just depending on the song, you may consider maybe making D4 your top note so that you could go like that and have that nice D on top. And so you may ask, why would you only put the pad in the mid-range? Why wouldn't you want it in the highs? And sometimes if you're playing a lead part in the right hand, so we'll go here and we'll turn on the mini lead, and we'll turn on our warm bass again. I've got my warm pad. It's gonna be up here in the top range, but then I maybe just don't want all of that pad stuff sustaining in the right hand along with my piano and lead parts. So by putting that warm pad or that brass pad in the middle range only, I'm able to fill up some extra space, sound nice and full without getting in the way of that lead part or having too much high-end content sustaining. So now I'm able to play something like this. It just creates a little bit of extra space for you to be able to thicken things up where you want them to be, nice and full, but leave space where it doesn't make sense for you to have all of that fullness. So that's a really, really helpful technique to be able to move these layers around. And again, if you want to do this for one preset of the brass pad, but you want the brass pad the full range on another preset, then just check out the adding sounds and presets to the template video. We'll show you how to actually copy an entire instrument rack and put it in one of these clips that are down here towards the bottom where it says your instrument. You can add as many instruments as you'd like, up to 127 instruments, and we've got 14 through 40, all of these slots pre-prepared for you, so it's a simple copy and paste or drag and drop. We'll show you how to do that in that video. In the next video, we're going to talk about how you can run tracks in Ableton and run keys at the same time. Ableton is amazing for running tracks for live performance, using as your master clock source running the metronome, and it's really easy to use these Sunday Keys presets and perform with your tracks live at the same time in arrangement view. And when you do this, when you program this out, you're able to completely automate your live setup so that you don't even need to touch your MIDI controller during your performance. You can automate all of your patch changes, automate any changes to the sounds themselves, to the amount of reverb, to the filter cutoff, to the volume of each preset. You can automate all of that in Ableton's arrangement view, and then just hit the play button and it will play back, make all of your patch changes for you. If you'd like, make changes to filter cutoff and all of that stuff as your tracks play back perfectly in sync with the metronome. So it's really cool to be able to do this, and I know that a lot of folks like to run their tracks in Ableton Live, so being able to both play your keys parts and your tracks at the same time in a unified way is really, really cool. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next video, and we'll see you there.